Okay, we're going to look at the wrapped leather shader. Let's load that up and see what parameters we have. As you can see, many of the parameters are the same as for the leather shader. And the only difference between the two is that the wrapped leather shader is a wrapped shader, which means that it's a 2D procedural bump shader that's wrapped across the object's UV space, and it makes the object look as though it's been covered by leather or skin. Whereas the previous tutorial, we were talking about the leather shader, which is a 3D procedural bump shader. And that doesn't take into account the object's UV space, which the wrapped leather shader does. So as you can see with the same scale setting over here, which sets the scale of the cells, increasing makes the cells larger, decreasing makes the cells smaller. Cell amplitude affects how high the cells appear to bump out and or how low, depending on raising or lowering the value. The regularity setting over here controls how regular or how irregular the boundaries between the cells are. So increasing it makes the boundaries more irregular, and decreasing it makes the boundaries more regular. So let's apply a regular pattern to our plane object, and then let's apply an irregular bump to our rounded cube object, and let's do a render to see what that looks like. Let's make that a bit smaller. Let's apply that to object. As you can see, the bump map is deformed by the object's UV space. So you have to make sure when you model your objects that your wrapped leather shader is going to follow the lines of the UV space. Then there's a smooth setting over here, and that has a max and min setting. Decreasing these values towards 0 makes the surface become smoother, and basically the max setting over here adjusts how high the bumps go, and the min setting over here controls how low the cracks go. So you can adjust that to get a different kind of look for your bump. So let's apply that to objects and see what that looks like. As you can see, the bump map looks much more different than it did before. So these settings really give you a lot of power. Then there's the rough setting over here, and what that does is it controls the settings for the secondary bump texture, which is superimposed on top of the cell texture. So by increasing the roughness amplitude, you make the rough texture, the secondary rough texture, much more bumpy out than it was before. Then there's detail setting, which affects how much detail that secondary bump texture has. Then there's the frequency, which adjusts the frequency of that secondary texture. So you can modify this to get a different look for your bump shader than you would otherwise. So let's apply to object and see what that looks like. So as you can see, the rough setting really does make the bump map look more rough. Then there's the curve setting over here, and there's 3 variables. What the curve setting allows you to change is the boundaries between the cells. The amplitude adjusts how curvy the amplitude of the boundaries are. The detail affects the detail of the curviness, and the frequency changes the frequency of it. So you adjust these to your liking. You make it very curvy, and you can change the detail to be higher, and we can make the frequency less over here. As you can see, it's breaking up the bump map pattern over there, and let's apply it to our object to see what that looks like. So we've adjusted the waviness for the lines, and now the last thing we can change is the fold setting. What the fold setting does is it allows us to control the depth, complexity, and frequency and scale of the roughness subtexture of the cell. So this, the roughness, so we increase the roughness, we can increase the detail for it, and we also change the frequency for it, from 0 maybe. As you can see, it looks much less rough, the subtexture now. So let's apply to objects and see what that looks like. As you can see, the wrapped leather shader is very versatile, and you can use it for a lot